Hello everybody and welcome to a video that we've actually had people request for quite some time, and
Really?
it's been on my list for a very long time, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
This is, people always ask us what is the best campaign to start with outside of, Night of the Zealot, because you get it in the box.
Yeah.
So we actually have a pretty simple process for this. We're going to be giving each full campaign up to Scarlet Keys, because it's not out yet at the time we're recording this video. And Travis and I each are going to give it a simple red, yellow, or green light for how we recommend it for new players. Or if you just have to pick up like one box and you're wondering which one it's going to be, then this is where you can look at it. Obviously, green means go, great recommendation. Yellow means we're going to talk about this is maybe not. And then red means not a good recommendation for your first starting box. Yeah. So why don't we go in pretty quick? Travis, I'll throw it to you first, because we're going to start with the Dunwich Legacy. This one's pretty simple. This one also just came out, too, with a re-release. So,
this one's pretty classic. This was the first campaign actually released, so it makes sense that it works well with a small card pool.
Yeah.
There are some design flaws in it, but if you are just starting out in the game, you will appreciate it nonetheless. You won't really... You won't look at them if you play all the other campaigns and you went back and played Dunwich Legacy, it would be pretty obvious where the design flaws were and what they've improved since then. But playing as your first one, you're not gonna care so much.
Yeah, you're
not gonna notice them.
We're not gonna talk about spoilers in this, but some of them are gonna blow you away. Some of the scenarios too, and you're not gonna be upset about it as other people were after you played a bunch of times.
Yeah.
And the big glaring design flaws, I think when you're just starting out, are going to be even less noticeable too, because the biggest, most notable one, I think, targets teams that are unconventional, right? Yep. And when you're a new player, it's also not recommended to build an unconventional team. Dunwich Legacy gets a very simple green for me as well. It was the first campaign. It was our first campaign. We played it with the exact collection that came out at the time. Actually, even smaller, because back when we played it was through Mythos packs.
Yep.
So we didn't get the full card pool at once, which is actually even easier now. Yeah. So it's just another green for me. I think it's a fantastic
the scenarios
campaign.
Are nice and easy. They still scale well though. They the late ones are cool. So just clean itself with your finger.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, great starting campaign. Good story. In spite of the design flaws, it is still a good experience.
I'm going to use my pinky to press this button.
Yeah.
Next up, we got Path to Carcosa. This one also was just recently re-released as a box. And I'll throw it to you again first for Path to Carcosa.
Oh, I picked yellow because it has to be.
Yeah, it does have to be. That's the rule.
No, so I picked yellow for this one. It's fine as a first campaign. The complexity isn't that much more than the Dunwich Legacy. It's also not that much more difficult in general. The story is very good, very immersive. But I think that, especially if it's your first big campaign, you're not going to quite appreciate it as much as if you play it later in the game cycle.
Yeah. And I agree with Travis completely there. Pretty much word for word. It's a great campaign. Sorry, buddy, you got to go.
You're getting sharp.
Yeah. It's a great campaign. It's very fun. I think it's one of the most quietly replayable ones, just because of the diversity that the scenarios in the campaign can have. But it really is not. You miss out on some of the cool hooks if it's your first campaign.
Yeah, especially so when you're playing your first campaign, you're probably gonna be very focused on the rules as opposed to what's going on in the game around you. That's natural. When you're doing something new and complex, you try to make it as simple as possible. Right? You're gonna be focused on what cards can I play, what cards are my deck, and not what the game's doing necessarily, or you're not gonna notice all the intricacies of the story, which is a strong reason I think to play it even later as your 5th or 6th campaign or something like that. But yeah, that being said, it's very replayable.
Yeah.
Like Justin mentioned, even every time playing the King in Yellow or the Path to Carcosa now, I'm I still just like it.
Yeah.
There's no scenarios I'm this one.
Yeah, there's one also this is as spoiler free as possible, but a later scenario has a map that is legitimately different every time you play it without being a strain on your mind to do it too.
Yep, it's nice and easy.
Yeah, and there's I don't think there's a lot of glaring rules things too, because we even like this is our least recommended return to because the base campaign is so good as it is.
But the return to is also so good.
It is very good.
Especially for the final scenario. Like
yes, yeah, it really pumps it up. But yeah, as Travis said, this one's yellow because it has to be. Next up, we're going to the Forgotten Age. I'll start for this one.
Okay.
So Travis and I have been online for like most of these, and it's going to continue for a good chunk of the ones to come. But this one is a very hard campaign on a blind playthrough. We hated this campaign for a very long time. It's like a joke on the channel, which was Travis hated the Forgotten Age. Yeah. Like, absolutely hated it.
I kind of forgot about that.
Yeah, now we really like the Forgotten Age. We were playing it today, and it's a great time. And even, like, it's...
Also, it can kick the shit out of us.
Yeah. And, like, it still is, like, very difficult even when you know it. But it's, like, you appreciate it more. And I think that it's not the best, first campaign for that reason. The blind playthrough is soul-crushing. The first scenario, I think, is one of the hardest in the game. And, like, it doesn't really get easier from there. Like, maybe, like, the third scenario is, like, where
the third scenario is easier. The fourth scenario is...
like, one of the hardest.
Yeah, it also sucks. The fifth one's, like, not that difficult, actually.
It's true, yeah.
The sixth one is easier than people give it credit for.
Yeah.
You know, I think the seventh and the eighth scenarios, because of the way the story is structured, they kind of even out the difficulty between them. I think the seventh scenario is a little more difficult than other penultimate scenarios, but the last one's a little bit easier than some of the others.
Yeah, yeah.
So...
And, like, honestly, like, if you actually, like, were looking at picking up campaigns, this would be a great third campaign, right? Because I think, like, that's when you can really start to appreciate the difficulty of it. Yeah. And honestly, like, if you're just buying the game as they come out, just honestly follow the order. I think the order that they came out is a really nice order.
It is.
But if you have to pick one, obviously, we're recommending the green ones first. And this one is, like, the last of the ones that you should start with if you're just looking at picking up one. But if you want to pick it up for, like, your third or, like, even your second...
Yeah, if I had to pick a campaign to only ever play again, it might be this one.
Yeah, I could see that. Honestly, it'd be high on my list. Yeah. And between me and Carcosa, they're my top two, probably. Yeah. It's a very good campaign. Like, we're not saying it's bad. I actually don't think there's a campaign that I outright, like, dislike.
Yeah.
Except for maybe, like, Dunwich is the closest, but that's just because I've played it, like,
so
20 times at this point in my life, yeah.
Yeah, part of the reason that this one is red for me as well is, like, it's just so punishing when you have a small card pool. Like, even on easier difficulties, it's just, like, kind of the game mechanics that are punishing and frustrating as opposed to, like, the actual difficulty of the game.
Yeah. And then also, like, if you're only picking up the box, like, the campaign box, the investigator box, you get, like, a dud purple mechanic that's not, like, particularly great in the campaign. You get a survivor investigator who... also is going to be harder than it is good for a small collection.
I can see the purple mechanic being good. Like for the one we played earlier today.
Yeah, that is true. That actually would have been nice. You got me there. You win that one.
I think we don't really give it the we don't play with that mechanic very often.
Yeah.
But
yeah. But great campaign, but just not a good starting campaign. Yeah. We're gonna go on to the Circle Undone. Ooh, our first split. Wow. So why don't you go first for yellow?
Yellow Charlie Kane so much.
It doesn't help that his tie stays red.
It's so gross, dude. Yeah, so the reason I chose Circle Undone is because it is it's quite difficult. It punishes you for not being able to boost certain stats, but the cards that come with it do like help work with that. The investigators and the cards in the set do function nicely into like playing against the campaign that they come with. Because you can't, as of the time of recording, you can't get this one individually.
Yes, that is true. Yeah, this is the first one where it's not like that.
All the
Forgotten Age 2.
Yeah. And that being said, I don't think that there's any part of this campaign that is particularly difficult aside from the last scenario.
Yeah,
or that's just not like overwhelmingly difficult.
I think that's very fair. For me, this one I think is I think that this is a harder I think the blind play is easier, but I think the campaign in itself, in order to do really well, I think is generally harder than Forgotten Age.
That's fair.
And I think it can like really stress test you in different ways. And like that's just why, like, for me, like, this is a personal thing that it's lower on my list to recommend for someone to start with, just because I think also that the gameplay loop that it provides and the story that it tells is less enticing. Like this one, there's the joke that it's and it's not really a joke, that it's like a stress test for one stat, and it's kind of true, but it's also like not kind of true. I think like that's also overblown. Every stat gets tested in every game. This one just like has a bit more of a certain stat.
Got a slight slant to it, but like even then the consequences for those are like, I mean, like, extremely minor spoilers here, but like treacheries that get put into your play area, and then there's ways to deal with them.
Yeah, there's ways to deal with them with your foot stat, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, there is. And I think that it's another thing too is that is another reason, because like you said, people care about, like, in their first playthrough, you're probably learning the game and taking the time. This one has a lot of treacheries that stay in your threat area.
There's a lot to remember.
And yeah, there's a lot of memory issues for this one, which also makes me not want to try it with new players, because they're going to do something and then you're going to be like, wait a minute, you did this, you idiot, like, and you're not supposed to. And I think avoiding that for your first playthrough is probably better. This reasonably could be closer to yellow, but the memory issues for this one, it does put a lot on your brain, which is fitting because that's what the campaign does.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna move on to Dream Eaters. Wow. So, I feel like Travis's recommendation for red here is very similar to why my recommendation is for yellow. I think this is the easiest campaign in the game.
Kinda.
For the two of them, because this one's a split campaign. There's two in them. However, you need 2 decks, so it's going to strain your collection.
2 decks per player.
2 decks per player, yeah. If you do not want to switch cards between decks, this is a red. 100%, it's a red. If you're okay with switching decks, like switching cards between decks, this is a yellow. But I think it's totally fair that this is a red for that exact reason. And like that's the only reason this one's a yellow. It's because you need to build so many decks, and it comes with that. However, with that said, what also pushes it to yellow as well is the fact that you can play the campaigns individually. So it's like a good thing to like just try decks out, but it's not like a great full green recommendation experience for a first campaign.
Yeah, I have it as red because of the deck building issue. You're like, if you have a core set and just the Dream Eaters campaign, you're not going to be able to build 6 concurrent good decks, competent decks. It's going to be too much strain on your collection. I also don't think this is as good of a new player experience as Justin does, because the experience values are kind of skewed.
Yeah, that's fair.
And which like can lead to unrealistic expectations going into other campaigns.
You played this one, then you played Dunwich.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very fair, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, it is a strong point for it that you do get like 2 stories in one, or like 2.5 stories, I guess, if you count playing them together as one whole one. But they are like, there's a ton of replay value between them, I don't think. I do enjoy the stories for this campaign a lot.
Yeah, the scenarios are very linear in this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there are some like feel bad mechanics in it. Like swarming.
Yeah, and there's also memory issues with a certain hidden card that is part of it. Yeah. That's fair. Yeah.
Yeah, I do think that there's also a couple situations that can arise that can be very frustrating for new players. Like the final scenario of the dream side, and then the bone pile one at the end.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that could end up leaving a bad taste in someone's mouth. As well as like one of the big things that, especially on the dream side, this brings to the story is that it is very much a subversion of what you expect from your Arkham campaigns. And you don't really get the full effect of that if you're just moving straight into it. You're like, straight out of the Night is Out, you're like, this is just how it is.
Yeah.
And then you never see those kinds of mechanics again, really.
Yeah. This is like a great, I want to jokingly say 5th campaign to pick up, because that's the order that it came out.
Yeah.
But yeah, like this sits in the middle of the pack. This one I think is the highest campaign in spectacle, though.
Oh, yeah.
Nothing will beat like the spectacle of this campaign.
Yeah, this one has like easily some of the best WoW moments.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great blind playthrough.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Innsmouth Conspiracy. We're back to the greens,
Yeah.
baby. Yeah. This one actually might be a little bit controversial because a lot of people are pretty. They think this one's pretty difficult, but I don't. I think this one's actually pretty simple, apart from 2 scenarios in it. This one does have the most wacky rules for it, because in 2 of the scenarios in particular. But I do think that new players won't get as bogged down in that as in franchise players would. Because for us, when we played this as our 6th campaign, we were like, what the heck's going on? We're in a car going down a road. This is wild. But like, it kind of has that exact same like kind of just like fun thing for when you're just starting out that you don't really like care so much about that. So I'm not going to like dock it points for those scenarios.
That's fair.
And I think this one, it's a little bit wonky on the XP, right? Like that is a little bit wonky.
Yeah.
Because you don't upgrade your decks all the time, so like that might put it closer to a yellow. But I do think that it's action packed. It has a lot of tense moments, and it's pretty simple. And like mechanically outside of the 2 scenarios in the campaign, it's a pretty simple campaign. And then also it's not too overwhelmingly difficult. Like, it has hard moments. Like, it's going to test you. You're not just going to cakewalk through it.
No.
Yeah. But it is going to, like, test your deck. It's going to test you as a player.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree with most of what Justin said. Like, I think the mechanics for this scenario, or this campaign, are generally very simple. I think that the scenarios themselves are relatively straightforward. Even the difficult ones that Justin mentioned are fairly linear. There isn't, like... There's things you can screw up rules-wise, but most of them don't really matter. At the end of the day, I don't know, it's just... Yeah, the story's, like, fun. You let you kind of piece things together as you go along. One thing that is, like, a little bit off about this is... or a point against it is that if you're buying it... Again, you can only buy this one currently through the Deluxe and the Mythos packs, which means you're also getting the player cards. The Bless and Curse archetypes are very... parasitic.
Yeah.
You're not going to see any other cards that synergize with those really in other packs.
Yeah.
Which isn't like, it's not a point against it. Like the archetypes are fun.
Yeah, and
they're interesting to play and build.
It's actually like the best time. Like if you just have this one, like the entire Innsmouth cycle to start with, because you're kind of just like, I have all the Blessed Curse cards. I can play and like have the whole thing and like get all the payoffs and like the setup for it. But then you start buying other things, and those things are kind of just like you don't get to like it's like,
it's like your player collection is kind of starting again.
Yes, exactly that. Yeah. It is going to be cool when they do the repackage though, because the campaign box is going to come with them too, so everyone's going to get more because they need to.
Tokens.
Yeah. Which is actually interesting because we might then see more stuff like that explored in the future.
Yeah.
Our last one here is the newest one as of last year. As I said at the start of this video, it came out. Scarlet Keys has not been released yet. However, I don't think Scarlet Keys is going to be a green one. I just feel it in my bones. I think it's going to be a little bit more complex due to the free-form nature. Nothing's changed.
I hope so after the last 2.
Yeah. We got Edge of the Earth. This is another green from both of us, and I think this actually, with the whole box re-release system, they had a perfect campaign for it. Because I think Edge of the Earth is easy, but I also think it has the potential to be very difficult. Because we're going through this right now. There's a mechanic in here called Frost Tokens. Our first time we played, we had like 1 in it by the end of the campaign.
Well, yes, because we like try hard through it, and then we got halfway through the campaign. We're like, this is kind of easy, actually.
Yeah. And now in our new one, we're probably going to end with like 5 or 6 in there.
Yeah.
And that's going to be a noticeable difficulty spike. And I think that is really cool. And then also this one, I think, depending on your player count too, like if you're playing with 2 players, this is probably a yellow, just because the maps are so big. It's actually, this one is one of the few campaigns where I think it's noticeably harder at 2 players. Like 3 players, I think it's a lot more manageable, and I imagine at 4 players, it's just kind of like even more manageable.
Yeah, I mean, like 4 players is generally easier than lower player counts, but I think it kind of averages out. I think there's other scenarios that are easier when you have less people.
Oh yeah, there definitely is like stuff like that. But this is like, it's mostly just because this one the maps are so big, which you really feel with less players on the board.
No, I get that too.
But I think it's a great first campaign. I think there's a lot of small replayability in terms of the partners. Even though there's one scenario that I haven't played in a different order. You can play it 3 different ways, but I've always played it the same way. Spoiler alert, when we play it together with Bryn, we're playing it someone we've already played together.
Oh, that's cool.
Just the way the random chance has worked for it, because it actually like legitimately is random chance.
Yep.
Yeah. But I think it's a great starting campaign, and I think it is a very nice, enjoyable story, and I like it. I think it's a fun campaign.
Yeah. I think the story is like generally compelling. It's fun to engage with. It feels like the grand adventure that it advertises itself as. One thing I dislike about the story is that's not really actually relevant to the new player experience. I don't think. The complaint.
I get what you're gonna. I think I know what it was.
Yeah. So I'm not gonna bring it up anymore. You guys can guess in the comments if you want.
Yeah.
Though. Yeah, the cards for it are nice and generic. I guess you don't have to buy them with this one, though.
Yeah, no, this one you can just buy the campaign. So, like, with all this, too, there is a little asterisk that you want to, even though you want to buy campaigns, you probably want to, I think, for me, the personal recommendation, if you had to choose one, do player cards first, then campaign. Just because it's really tough, like, when you just have Knight of the Zealot, right?
Yeah, you're not going to build effective decks with that. I think that I would get like a couple player card things and then campaigns.
Starter decks then campaign would be a great. Yeah. I think like the starter decks are still the best for new player purchase. Yeah, for a card pool. And then like after that, like in a perfect world, what you would love to do is buy a card expansion and a campaign expansion at the same time. And then after that, I would always go, for me personally, more player cards than campaign, just because there's a lot of replayability in going back to a campaign with
That's
new
fair.
cards. Yeah, but I think the starter decks are like still the best player card infusion for their price. Yeah.
Shame that has nothing to do with the video, or very little to do with the video we're making.
No. But I mean, like, let's assume you already have those and you got to this point, and now you know what campaigns you want to start with. And so Dunwich, Innsmouth, and Edge of the Earth are our 3 greens. Go ahead on either of those 3, we think. Yeah. Dunwich is probably the like super green because it's in the new box format. And hunting down Mythos packs, man,
it sucks.
Yeah, when we got the Scarlet Keys box and I had like all the cards right there, I was like, wow, I can't believe we used to do this another way. Yeah. Huge thank you to all of our patrons for supporting the channel. This actually is a fun format, this stoplight series. So if anyone has any other things they want to see us to do with this kind of stuff, let us know in the comments, because we'll do it. You know, it's fun to also us for change up pace a bit.
Isn't it just like when we do the group list but different?
It is like when we do the group list but different.
Yeah, with colors instead of numbers.
Yeah, colors. But colors we see. Numbers we see.
They're more exciting but less accessible.
It's true, yeah. It's true, right? Numbers, we can be more nuanced, but everyone's like, we want the colors. Red, yellow, or green. Thanks for watching. Bye!